I had always believed that family wasn't necessarily built on blood but on love and connection, but I was wrong. The day I realized that was also the day I lost the only mother I had ever known. And from that moment on, the little brother who once held my hand as a child, who used to excitedly call me sister, became the person who hated me the most. From his cold stare to the cruel words he hurled at me, I understood that, to him, I had never truly been a part of this family. I am Rachel, 31 years old, working as an administrative manager at a public service center in Chicago. I don't share my stepfather David's blood, but he raised me from the time I was little, loving me as if I were his own. He was a quiet man yet full of responsibility, always looking at me with the gentle eyes of a real father. I grew up believing that no matter what, he would always be my family. David married my mother when I was 6. He had never had children of his own until my mother gave birth to Ethan, the little brother I once cherished like a treasure. I remember it vividly. When Ethan was just learning to walk, I would always rush to catch him whenever he stumbled. During those years, I truly believed that we would always be a close-knit family, unbreakable by anything. But then tragedy struck. When I was 24 and Ethan had just turned 15, a car accident took my mother's life. That day I was at work when I received a call from the police. By the time I arrived at the hospital, it was too late. The stark white walls, the cold glow of the surgical lights, the hurried footsteps of the doctors, all of it was useless in bringing her back. I was devastated, but at least I still had my stepfather and Ethan. I thought that in the pain of losing our mother we would lean on each other to get through it. But I never expected Ethan to choose a different path. The cruelest one. At the funeral, amidst the muffled sobs of relatives, Ethan stood in front of my mother's portrait and suddenly screamed, his eyes red with anger. "It should have been you who died, not Mom." I was stunned. In that moment I saw pure hatred in the eyes of the little brother I had once loved with all my heart. I wanted to believe it was just grief speaking, but it wasn't. From that day on, Ethan was no longer the same child I had known. He avoided me, spoke to me with disdain, deliberately emphasizing that I was nothing more than a stepchild. I lost count of how many times he told me that I wasn't really part of this family, that I had no right to be here, that I was an outsider. My father David, though heartbroken, still tried to hold us together. He repeatedly scolded Ethan, even getting angry when he spoke such hateful words. But it didn't matter. Ethan only grew colder toward me as he got older, treating me more and more like a stranger. I gradually came to accept the truth. In my brother's eyes, I was no longer his sister. I was just an outsider. My father passed away on an autumn morning suddenly, just like my mother had years before. The night before, he had called me, asking about my work and reminding me to take care of myself. I still remember his warm voice over the phone. "Rachel, don't overwork yourself. Come home for dinner when you have time." But the next morning, I received a call from the hospital. My father had suffered a heart attack at home and passed away before he could be saved. I thought I was strong after everything I had been through, but standing in front of his cold, lifeless body, I completely broke down. He was the only one left in my family who truly loved me, the one who had always protected me from Ethan's cruelty. And now he was gone too, leaving me alone in this world. The funeral was quiet and solemn. I stood beside my father's casket receiving condolences from his old acquaintances, neighbors, and my colleagues. Ethan arrived more than an hour late, walking into the funeral home wearing an expensive suit and an expressionless face. He didn't say a word to me, just gave a brief nod to a few relatives before sitting in a distant corner. I wasn't surprised. Ethan had hated me for a long time. My father's death didn't change that. But everything truly began after the funeral, when my father's lawyer contacted us to discuss the inheritance. My father hadn't left behind much. A small house in the suburbs of Chicago, an old car, some savings, and a retirement fund investment. I didn't care about the money, but I knew Ethan did. The meeting took place at the lawyer's office. I arrived on time while Ethan, as usual, showed up more than 30 minutes late. When he entered the room, he didn't even glance at me. Instead, he walked straight to a chair and leaned back with an arrogant smirk. The lawyer opened the file and began reading the will. I already knew that my father had divided his assets between us both. Even though I wasn't his biological child, he had legally adopted me after my mother passed away. I had equal inheritance rights as Ethan. But Ethan scoffed and immediately interrupted the lawyer. "This is ridiculous." He crossed his arms, his voice dripping with contempt. "Why should I have to share my father's inheritance with someone who isn't even related to him by blood? Rachel, you were just my mother's child. You have no right to anything." I stared at him. I didn't feel anger or pain anymore. I had grown used to hearing these words from Ethan. I simply replied, "This is what our father wanted. He was wrong. And now, he's no longer here to fix his mistake." Ethan shrugged, his voice chillingly cold. "I'll take everything. You just need to sign the renunciation papers, and that's it." I clenched my fists. Just as I had expected, Ethan would never change. I didn't want to fight him. I didn't need money, didn't need the inheritance. All I wanted was to escape this family's shadow, to completely sever ties with the brother I once loved. I took a deep breath, lifted my head, and looked Ethan straight in the eye. "Fine, I'll give up everything. But in return, from this moment on, you are never to contact me, never to look for me, never to appear in my life again, not even once." Ethan scoffed. "You think I would ever need you? I'd rather die than have to reach out to you." "Good." I stood up, turning to the lawyer. "I'll sign the renunciation papers. After today, Ethan will no longer be a part of my life." I walked out of the office without looking back. I had lost my father, but today I had also cut off the last remaining tie to this family, with my own hands. And I think, maybe, that was the best decision I had ever made. I thought that after that day I would never have to hear from Ethan again. I had signed the renunciation papers, cutting all ties with him. He could take everything my father left behind, spend it however he pleased. It was no longer my concern. But I was wrong. 3 months later, Ethan called me. An unknown number flashed across my phone screen, but I knew right away it was him. I hesitated for a few seconds, then declined the call. But Ethan didn't give up. The messages started flooding in. "Rachel, I need to talk to you." "Rachel, please pick up. This is important. You can't just ignore me like this." I didn't respond. We had an agreement. He wanted everything. I had stepped aside. But now he wanted to reach out to me. I knew for sure this wasn't going to be anything good. 7 days later, I walked into my office as usual, placed my bag down, and powered on my computer. But just a few minutes later, my coworker, Anna, peeked her head in. "Rachel, there's a guy standing at the front desk insisting on seeing you." I didn't even need to ask. I already knew who it was. I walked out to the reception area. Ethan stood there, noticeably thinner, dark circles under his eyes, his clothes slightly wrinkled. The moment he saw me, he rushed forward, making no attempt to hide his urgency and desperation. "Rachel, I need your help." I crossed my arms, keeping my voice calm. "It's with an agreement, remember?" Ethan bit his lip but then let out a long sigh, lowering his head. "I have no other choice." I watched him, waiting. Finally, he had to admit the truth. After inheriting everything, Ethan started spending recklessly. He moved out of our father's old house into a luxury apartment in the city, bought a new car, designer clothes, and threw extravagant parties. He thought he had won. But then the debts started piling up. My father, David, had taken out several loans to sustain his life. He wasn't as wealthy as Ethan had assumed. The savings he left behind only covered a portion of it, and Ethan couldn't handle the rest in time. He tried borrowing money from friends to stay afloat, but soon he fell into a vicious cycle of debt. Now, no one would lend him anything. Ethan clenched his fists, his voice trembling. "Rachel, I need your help. If you don't, I'll lose everything." I looked at him, feeling not even the slightest bit of sympathy. "You had everything, but you wasted it all in just a few months." "I didn't know Dad had debts. If I had known, I wouldn't have spent so much," Ethan shouted. I shrugged. "You didn't know because you never bothered to find out. You only thought about enjoying yourself, never about responsibility." Ethan stared at me, his face contorting in anger. "You knew, didn't you? You knew about the debts but didn't say anything. You wanted me to fall into this trap, to end up like this so you could laugh at me, didn't you?" I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. "I tried to tell you right after Dad passed, but you were the one who cut me off. You were the one who refused to listen. You wanted everything, so now, take responsibility for all of it." Ethan staggered back a step, his fists clenched tightly. "Rachel, please, you can't just let me lose everything like this." I looked straight into his eyes. "You're not my brother anymore. You said so yourself, didn't you?" Ethan opened his mouth but couldn't say a word. I turned away, leaving him standing there in his own despair. But I knew this wouldn't be the last time Ethan came looking for me. And I knew this wasn't going to end so easily. Ethan didn't stop after that. He became more persistent than ever. At first I thought that if I ignored him long enough he would eventually give up. But I was wrong. Ethan didn't know how to give up. He kept coming to my office despite my firm rejection the last time. Every time he would stand at the reception desk, begging to see me. When the receptionist refused, he would just sit there for hours, deliberately humiliating me in front of my colleagues. He didn't yell or cause a scene, but his relentless persistence drove me insane. I tried to avoid him, took different routes, worked late to make sure he was gone before I left. But then, one day, I found Ethan waiting for me right outside the parking lot. As soon as I stepped out of the building, he rushed over and blocked my path. "Rachel, can you please just listen to me?" I tightened my grip on my bag and replied calmly, "We've already talked. What more do you want? I have no one else to turn to. I've tried everything." His voice was hoarse, his eyes sunken from exhaustion. But I felt no sympathy. "That was your choice, Ethan." He let out a bitter laugh. "My choice? Do you really think I had a choice? I'm just trying to survive." I crossed my arms, my voice cold. "And you think it's my responsibility to help you?" Ethan bit his lip, then suddenly his tone softened, more desperate than ever. "I'll pay you back, I swear. Just help me this once, just this one time." I looked into his eyes. I had once believed his promises, once thought that no matter what, we were still family. But now, I had no faith left in him. I shook my head. "No." Ethan flinched, as if he couldn't believe what he had just heard. "You're really not going to help me?" I turned away to leave, but he lunged forward and grabbed my wrist. "Rachel, I'm begging you, I can't pay off this debt. I'm going to lose everything. I'll be out on the streets." I yanked my hand free, my voice colder than ever. "I'm not your bank, Ethan. You pushed me out of your life and now you want me to save you? I don't care if you survive or not. Don't ever come looking for me again." I strode toward my car, opened the door and got inside, slamming it shut. Ethan remained standing there, motionless, as if he couldn't comprehend that I was truly leaving him behind. I started the engine, not looking back as I drove away. But I knew this wasn't over. In the following weeks, Ethan kept showing up. He no longer ambushed me at the parking lot, but instead he flooded my inbox with emails, texts, and even called from unknown numbers. He went as far as harassing my coworkers, asking about me, even spreading lies that I owed him money in an attempt to ruin my reputation at work. I realized that if I didn't act soon, Ethan would continue dragging me into the mess he had created. So, I went to the head of human resources and explained everything. I didn't go into personal details. I simply stated that a relative was harassing me and it was severely affecting my ability to work. I couldn't live like this any longer. I needed a fresh start. And so I requested a transfer to a different branch of the public administration office, somewhere farther away where fewer people knew me. Fortunately, my workplace had multiple branches across Illinois. I chose a place far from the city, a small town near the mountains, where Ethan wouldn't be able to find me easily. 1 week later, I left Chicago. No forwarding address, no notifications to anyone. I simply packed my things and left. From a few acquaintances, I later heard that Ethan had finally been forced to sell his expensive apartment to pay off some of his debt. But it still wasn't enough. His salary was now being garnished every month to cover what he owed, leaving him with barely anything to survive on. The lavish lifestyle he once flaunted was gone. I don't know how he's living now, and I don't want to know. I have a new life, a life without Ethan. As time passed, I gradually adjusted to my new life in this small mountain town. No more judgmental stares, no more past haunting me, and most importantly, no more Ethan. The work at the local administrative office here was busy in its own way. The population wasn't large, but everyone needed assistance. Unlike in Chicago, where everything was rushed and impersonal, here, people treated each other like family. My new colleagues welcomed me with warmth and sincerity. Martha, an older woman who worked with me, often brought homemade cookies to the office. "Rachel, you're too thin. Everyone here loves good food. You should relax and enjoy yourself a little." She smiled kindly as she placed a box of cookies on my desk. John, the office supervisor, was a man of few words but full of integrity. On my first day, he patted my shoulder and said, "There's no distinction here. Everyone has their own worth. You'll be just fine." Those words made me feel like I had stepped out of a thick fog. For years I had been fighting against judgment, constantly proving my worth to a family that had never truly accepted me. But here, no one cared who I used to be. They only knew me as Rachel, a colleague, a friend. I slowly fell in love with the peaceful rhythm of life here. The crisp morning air, the winding stone-paved streets lined with trees, the cozy little cafes with warm golden lights. Life was neither extravagant nor fast-paced, but it gave me a sense of peace I had never known before. Occasionally, I still heard bits of news about Ethan from old acquaintances. After I'd disappeared from Chicago, he had desperately tried to find me, but his financial troubles didn't allow him to keep searching for long. The luxury apartment he once bragged about was sold off to pay debts. His expensive car was gone. Every month, a portion of his salary was deducted to cover the remaining loans. With no money left for lavish spending, no friends to party with, Ethan became a lonely figure in the very life he once flaunted. I didn't feel triumphant, I only felt relieved. For the first time in my life, I was truly free. One day, while strolling through the local market, I stopped in front of a small clothing store. Inside, I saw a simple yet warm blue knitted scarf. I reached out to touch it and suddenly thought of my father. When I was a child, he had once given me a similar scarf for Christmas. "You're always cold, Rachel. Stay warm, okay?" Thinking of him, I felt a warmth spread through my heart. Even though he was gone, I knew, somewhere out there, he would be proud of me. I was no longer the stepchild. I was no longer the outsider. I am Rachel, and I am living my own life. Rachel's story isn't just about inheritance or family conflicts, it's about finding self-worth. In life, we are often tied down by toxic relationships, by the expectations of blood ties and social labels. But in the end, what truly matters isn't the family we're born into, it's the life we choose to build for ourselves. Rachel had the courage to leave the past behind, to walk away from harmful relationships and to find peace on her own terms. And that's the greatest lesson. Family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by the people who truly value and cherish us. Rachel's story makes us reflect on family, responsibility, and self-worth. What do you think about Rachel's decision? Did she make the right choice? Share your thoughts, and don't forget to follow the channel for more meaningful stories about family and life.